So from the first moment that I posted a video talking about Super Sentai, immediately people started sending me requests to talk about Kamen Rider right away. And I probably would have talked about it sooner, but people really seem to like the ERod versus Super Sentai videos where I just chat about Super Sentai unscripted, all the different shows. Um, So I wasn't sure when to jump off and talk about Kamen Rider, but it seems like the views for those Super Sentai videos are going down, the interest is dying. So I'm going to take a break from that and to fulfill your request and talk about this show. Now, for the sake of the uninitiated, what the hell is Kamen Rider? Kamen Rider is the granddaddy of the henshin shows, meaning live action shows where heroes transform. That's what henshin means. It means to transform or transformation. Um, so Kamen Rider is actually based on very popular manga that was moderately successful in the 60s and then in the 70s. But and there had been talk for years to adapt it into some kind of a TV show, cartoon, live action, something. It was a no-brainer. It was something with a built-in audience. So it was only a matter of time before that happened, before it was adapted. However, what they were not expecting was for when they adapted it, for it to become a pop culture phenomenon. Uh, Kamen Rider took the country and eventually the world by storm, uh, and led to the very specific series of events that created Super Sentai and other henshin shows. It is the OG of that genre. We wouldn't have any of that. We wouldn't have Power Rangers, uh, Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad, VR Troopers, Big Bad Beetleborgs. We wouldn't have any of that without without Kamen Rider existing first. Um, Sadly, it's something that I've been putting off on watching for many, many years, and my only exposure to Kamen Rider, and please try not to throw up in your mouth, was Saban's The Masked Rider. I'm sorry, okay? I lived in the United States, and that was the only thing that I have access to. It was the one time that Saban Entertainment tried to adapt Kamen Rider into one of their shows, but instead of making something good like Power Rangers, they made something that shouldn't be watched by humans. Holy crap. I remember the one and only time that I watched Masked Rider just being too preoccupied and distracted by the fact that the hero would transform into a grasshopper themed character. And I was like, why? The whole episode, and just a lot of dumb shit happening here and there, and me watching it and thinking, why is he a grasshopper? Just I couldn't get past that and enjoy the episode because everything else was so dumb and so lame and so badly done. Holy crap. But on the flip side of that, the original show, the 1971 Kamen Rider, I don't want to say that it's good, but if you're a fan of the henshin genre, if you're a fan of tokusatsu, if you're a fan of Power Rangers and Super Sentai, this show is worth watching. I will warn you though, it takes a while. It takes about a dozen, maybe 2 dozen episodes before the show really finds its stride. Like I said, they didn't expect for the show to be a hit. They didn't expect the show to exist past a few dozen episodes, let alone 98 episodes. It ran for 3 years. Nobody expected that. But a big part of the fun of it is watching the show evolve. And even those first dozen or so episodes where the special effects are MST3K worthy and the fight sequences look like I choreographed them myself, A lot of phantom punches, a lot of phantom kicks where a character just waves their arm, waves their leg, and doesn't make any contact, and the opponent just goes flying off. I guess they used the force. A lot of that, a lot of things that didn't quite work. But if you stop and think about the fact that they were making a tokusatsu show, meaning a show that has heavy special effects on a TV schedule and a TV budget, if you put that in your mind and watch it in that mindset, then it's ridiculously impressive, even those early episodes. But I promise you that if you sit down and watch it and you're patient, I promise you that eventually the show gets traction and everything gets much better. Is it still cheesy? Is it still goofy? Do they occasionally have the special effect that didn't quite work as well as others? Sure. But I promise you that the quality goes up big time. And in that show, you see the evolution of the henshin genre. You see it go from this thing where they were just trying to adapt a famous comic and make a buck, and suddenly, boom, the show itself became a franchise. It became a dynasty. It became something big and important and worth preserving and worth putting effort into and putting as much quality as possible into. So that is the most exciting thing. So, now that that's out of the way, now that the backstory is out of the way, let's get into talking about... There goes the Kamen Rider right there, into action. Henshin! Shocker doesn't stand a chance. Anyway. Oh yeah. Anyway, so let's talk about 1971 Kamen Rider. So what is this show about? So there's this evil terrorist organization called Shocker, whose entire mission is to take everyone that's worthy on the planet and transform them into cyborgs and then brainwash them to do their bidding. But animal-themed cyborgs, to be exact. And they only choose the best of the best, the physical and mental elite of society to do this, to augment by a operation to turn them into a cyborg and then brainwash them. So when the show begins, the first person that they capture to do this to is Takeshi Hongo, who is the world's greatest motorcycle rider. Motorcycle racer. So they capture Takeshi and they do the operation on him and they turn him into a cyborg, into a grasshopper themed cyborg, because all their cyborgs have to be animal themed, because why not? And right when they're gonna go and brainwash them, one of their scientists betrays them and sabotages the brainwashing machine. And they turn it on, it explodes. It's like, oh no, we can't brainwash this guy anymore. Let's all leave the room for some reason. And they leave, and the scientist comes in and frees Takeshi and saves him, and they both escape together. And the scientist wants Takeshi to use his new abilities that Shocker gave to him to fight Shocker, because Shocker is a super secret terrorist organization and very few people know about him. And now there are only two good men who know about Shocker, and they should dedicate their lives to fighting them, exposing them, and stopping them permanently. But Takeshi doesn't want anything to do with that. He wants to get another surgery so he can be a normal person again and go back to motorcycle racing. And then suddenly the scientist, the only other person that knows about Shocker, gets killed. And Takeshi Hongo has his Uncle Ben moment. He feels bad. This man risked his life to save him. So to honor him, he grants his final wish to dedicate these found superhuman abilities to fighting Shocker as the Masked Rider, aka Kamen Rider. Now, why is he the only cyborg with the ability to transform from human to his animal themed cyborg form? I have no idea. Uh, and again, to touch upon the evolution of the series, originally, the only way that Takeshi could transform into Kamen Rider is that he has a turbine, an air turbine, on his belt buckle, and if enough air, if a strong gust of air goes through that belt buckle, he transforms into the Kamen Rider. And that became a bit of an obstacle for the writers, like finding new and interesting ways for him to transform into the Kamen Rider, because the idea is for him to transform while he's riding his motorcycle. Lots of wind is hitting him. He activates his belt. The wind that's hitting him goes to the turbine. Boom, Kamen Rider. But what happens when he needs to turn into Kamen Rider? He's not on his motorcycle. So they would come up with all different ways for him to transform. A bad guy would push him off a building. He would fall. The air would hit the belt buckle. Kamen Rider, biggity bam, everything's great. There's one where he's trapped in a hole, and they put explosives in there, and he can't transform, and he can't jump out. And the wind from the explosion, that turned him into Kamen Rider. So eventually, they realize, you know what, this doesn't work. There needs to be a better way. And that's when they come up with one of the most enduring gimmicks from the show, which is that the hero strikes a pose, it says like a magic word, and transform. You know, in the case of Takeshi, it was Rider, Henshin, Rider, transform. And he would transform into Kamen Rider. Thankfully, they changed that, which became cool. It was something for kids to imitate, and it stuck. So the most famous fact about the show is that about a dozen episodes in, the actor that played Takeshi Hongo, Hiroshi Fujioka, broke his right femur, his right thigh bone, during a motorcycle stunt. And watching the show in order, I am not surprised that happened, because every episode you see him riding his motorcycle at full speed, no protective gear whatsoever, him wearing a suit and tie, no helmet. It's a miracle that man didn't die. So there was an accident, broke his femur, his right femur, and so he had to take time off and heal. And unfortunately, that happened right when the show exploded, right when the show took off, and the network ordered more episodes. I think like 25 more episodes. So they had to find a way to keep going, so they introduced another individual that went through the exact same thing as Hongo, Hayato Ishimonji, the second Kamen Rider. The same thing happened to him, I think, in Mexico. However, here's where it gets wacky. Like I said, originally, Shocker only wanted to turn people who were physical specimens into their cyborg slaves. And Hayato is terrific. He's a great guy, but not an athlete. He was a professional photographer. So I don't know how that made him a good candidate to be transformed into a cyborg slave, but I'm not going to argue. Around the time that they introduced the second rider, the new rider, this is when the show really starts to find its stride. This is when it starts to get good. This is when they introduce the action poses and the transformation where he just says the magic word. In the case of Hayato Ishimonji, he says Henshin, and he transforms, which was my favorite of the two transformations. And another thing that I loved is that he didn't play the Kamen Rider the same way as Hongo. Hongo, those first few episodes are very, very serious, very gritty. Like I said, the first episode, Hongo's one and only ally dies right in front of him. So he was a very brooding, dark character. He was always lamenting about not being able to share his secret identity as a Kamen Rider with other people, about how he was the only one that knew about Shocker, and it was just one man taking a stand against this huge organization. There's always a lot of inner monologue voicing his melancholy. But then when Hayato takes over as a Kamen Rider, it's a whole other tone. Things get a little bit more fun. Because Hayato is a very cavalier, he's a very devil-may-care sort of a character. The difference between Hongo and Hayato is Hongo is more like Batman. You know, he's dark, he's epic, he's all business. And Hayato is more like Zoro. He is going to go out, he's going to have a blast, and he is going to humiliate the bad guys in the process, and he's going to laugh at their expense. So as great as Hongo is, and if he's your favorite Kamen Rider, I totally get it, totally with you, but it was the experience of a new person taking over as the Doctor in Doctor Who, where at first you're like, ugh, who's this new person? And I'm never going to like this new person, and immediately you fall in love with them. And it was the exact same experience. This new guy shows up as the Kamen Rider. I was like, but Hongo was so cool. Okay, this guy is all right. I like his attitude. I like the cut of his jib. He's so much fun. And he's the type of guy that you can never piss off. He will smile in your face as he is kicking your ass. That's Hayato Ichimonji. So yeah, that change, that bold choice of making the characters distinct and different was a great choice. And so eventually Hongo starts to come back and do a guest spot here, a guest spot there. They do a couple of episodes where the two writers team up, and I think episode 53 he comes back full time and returns as the main Kamen Rider on the show. And don't worry about Hayato. He comes back and does a few guest spots and crossovers. So he's not completely gone. But yeah, they made it work with what they had. And the moment that he had to go and heal and take time off, the moment that you notice that they went through great lengths to protect the main actor. There was Hayato, every time you see him on a motorcycle, he's always wearing a helmet. So they learned their lesson, and I'm glad, because it'd be a shame for yet another actor to get seriously injured. Like I said, first, the monsters on the show, the monsters that Shocker creates a little silly. They're all animal themed. You have Batman, Spider-Man, Scorpion Man, so on and so on. They're all animal themed. And I'm watching the show and I'm thinking, man, inevitably they're gonna run out of animals. And the 26th episode, I'm pretty sure, I kid you not, they have Flying Squirrel Man. Like, what? Like, really? That's the fiercest animal they could come up with? So there you go. Towards the end, they learned their lesson and they came out, they started coming out with more monsters characters that were a lot more fierce to fight the Kamen Riders. And monsters that were combinations between things like a Venus flytrap and a shark, things like that. They would combine two things that didn't go together and create this new monstrosity. So that was interesting, and that they, again, like I said, as the show progresses, things get better. And I don't know if they did this on purpose, but the first episode where Hayato shows up as a Kamen Rider, they throw you a curveball and they introduce this character called Taki, who is an FBI agent from America, who is the only one that knows about the existence of Shocker. And it is his mission from the FBI to find evidence of the existence of Shocker and stop them. And so this guy shows up right when it's obvious that Hongo's not coming back. And the excuse that they use for Hongo's disappearance is that there are other Shocker cells around the world. There's one in Mexico, there's one in Europe. So he's off dealing with that. So he sends Takeshi to, he sends Hayato to Japan, the second Kamen Rider, to protect Japan while Hongo is off in other countries fighting off the other cells, taking down the other cells of Shocker. So when the characters on the show learn this, you're like, okay, well, who's going to be the Kamen Rider now? And like I said, this new guy named Taki shows up. He's tall, he's handsome, he knows martial arts, he rides a motorcycle. So you think, oh, well, obviously this guy is going to get captured by Shocker and get turned into a cyborg and be the new Kamen Rider, right? Nope. That was complete misdirection. Suddenly, him and Hongo's best friend, Mr. Tachibana, they're trying to make their way through a field of exploding cacti, or cactuses, as some people like to say. I'm not kidding. That was the trap that Shocker set up. They're trying to make the way through this field of exploding plants, and this guy just shows up. This new guy in a sharp 70s jumpsuit and an ascot, and he's like, hey, everybody, I'm Hayato Ichimonji. I'm the new Kamen Rider. And he transforms into Kamen Rider, biggity bam, he's the new Kamen Rider. So it was like, okay, wow, that was a misdirection. And like I said, at first, it's so jarring that you're like, okay, this whole new guy shows up, he just says he's the Kamen Rider, and that's it. But like I said, as episodes go by and you get to know him, he wins you over very, very quickly. So, yeah, unfortunately, this was a show that was a victim of its own success. It was so big, it was so in demand that they ended up making 98 episodes. That's a lot of episodes. So by the time they get to the ending, even though the ending's not bad, you could tell that they were running out of steam. And they just needed to wrap things up very quickly and end the show. And again, it's not bad. It's a good ending. It's a worthy ending. It's just compared to a lot of the other arcs that they had throughout the series, not as big. And when they finally go to the Shocker leader and the Shocker leader unmasks, and it's shocking. It fits with the name that they chose, but it's kind of meaningless. They really built up the secret identity of the Shocker leader for so long that you thought it was going to be something mind-blowing and meaningful to the plot. It was going to come full circle somehow, and it doesn't. So, again, the ending's not bad. It's just a little underwhelming, especially for the quality of the show. So there you go. Those are my first impressions of the original 1971 Kamen Rider. Now, the question that I've been getting from the moment that I announced this on Blue Sky. I'm on Blue Sky now. Follow me if you like social media. Am I gonna watch and post reactions to the other Kamen Rider shows? Honestly, guys, I don't have any strong interest in checking out the other Kamen Rider shows, no offense. But you guys can change my mind. You guys can message me as much as you like and tell me about these shows and tell me what you want me to talk about, and I'll take it into the highest of consideration. The one Kamen Rider show that I'm very interested in, one that I've been hearing my friends and colleagues talk about for 15 years, is Kamen Rider Black. That's one that I've been interested in since before I watched this version. So I might watch that one for my own enjoyment soon. However, I haven't decided whether I should talk about it or go to the second Kamen Rider show and watch that first. So there you go. That's my stance so far. You guys let me know what you think in the comment section or on social media, and I'll make my decision. So there you go. And now for the announcements. Right now on my Patreon page, I did an unscripted video talking about the Sonic the Hedgehog film trilogy. So if you want to see that video, but you're not a patron, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/ERod and pledge $1. That's it. You pledge $1, you're helping me to continue creating content, and in return, you get bonus videos. You can't beat that with a wooden stick. And now for the announcement that all of you have been waiting for. What's going to be my next honest review? My next honest review will be on Marvel's What If. It just officially came to an end. It's time to talk about the alternate reality Marvel series, the one that was supposed to establish the Marvel multiverse, and I will be talking about that very soon on this very channel, so stay tuned. Thank you so much for your ongoing support, because as per usual, and this is as true can be, I cannot do what I do without you.